On April 8, 2026, a NASCAR executive stepped in front of a microphone and made a decision that sent shockwaves through the motorsport community. A content creator with almost 5 million YouTube subscribers, who had built his entire career outside the traditional racing system, was told he would not be cleared to race at Talladega or Daytona in the O'Reilly Auto Parts series. And before any journalist could break the story, before any insider could spin it, the man himself went on Facebook and told his fans exactly what happened. No excuses, no deflection, no PR damage control. Just a guy telling the truth about a setback in real time. That moment alone tells you something important about who Garrett Mitchell, better known as Cletus McFarland, actually is. But it also opens up a much bigger conversation about what NASCAR was really saying with this decision, and whether the sport handled it correctly. Garrett Mitchell, 31 years old, grew up in Nebraska and built one of the most recognizable names in automotive content on YouTube through horsepower, humor, and a level of authenticity that most creators never achieve. He owns the Freedom Factory, a privately operated racetrack in Bradenton, Florida. His personal car collection sits at around 150 vehicles. He invented his own Crown Vic racing series from scratch. His entire world was drag racing and content creation, not late models, not karting, not any traditional motorsport developmental ladder. He did not come up through the system that produces NASCAR drivers. He built his own lane using a camera and an audience. So when Cletus McFarland decided to pursue NASCAR, the sport's first question was a reasonable one: has he actually earned it? That question is not unfair. Every driver who has ever made it to NASCAR's top tiers has a story of years spent grinding through regional series, learning car control under pressure, absorbing the discipline of competitive racing before getting a shot at the big stage. Cletus McFarland had none of that. What he had was a massive platform and a genuine passion for racing. Whether that was enough was always going to be tested eventually. In 2025, McFarland made 5 starts in the ARCA Menard Series, which is NASCAR's official developmental platform. The results were not dominant, but they were not embarrassing either. He posted 2 top 10 finishes, including a 4th-place result at Rockingham Speedway in the ARCA Menard Series East race. That performance was enough to get noticed at the highest level. Richard Childress Racing, one of the most decorated organizations in NASCAR history, offered him a 2-year contract with 3 to 4 O'Reilly Auto Parts Series starts per season in both 2026 and 2027. Veteran driver Ty Dillon was brought in as his on-track mentor. Team veteran Mark Reedy was assigned to help him absorb the discipline and structure of a championship-level program. This was not a publicity stunt by RCR. This was a real investment in a driver they believed had potential worth developing. Around the same time, the Polaris deal materialized, a multi-year endorsement that replaced aging Freedom Factory equipment with a full fleet of new Polaris vehicles, a deal facilitated by NASCAR veteran Greg Biffle. The brand was betting on McFarland's journey, not just his current results. That level of institutional support from within NASCAR itself sent a clear message: the sport saw something in him worth nurturing. His NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series debut at Daytona in February 2026 lasted 6 laps. He lost control exiting turn 4, hit the inside wall, and finished dead last out of 37 drivers. The result was brutal by any measure, and for many teams, that kind of debut would have ended the conversation entirely. RCR pressed forward regardless. They got him into a test session at Rockingham, evaluated what they saw, and entered him in the number 33 Chevrolet for his O'Reilly Auto Parts Series debut on April 12, 2026. But what Daytona had actually revealed to anyone paying close attention was something specific. Superspeedway racing, pack racing with 40 cars at over 200 miles per hour, separated by inches, is not a place to learn the basics of competitive racing. The instinct gaps that show up at that level are unforgiving. Nobody said that out loud immediately after Daytona, but NASCAR was watching. Rockingham Speedway is an abrasive, fast, and tire-aggressive track. As Ty Dillon described it, things happen fast there, and it is hard just to make laps. That description turned out to be more accurate than anyone hoped. By lap 3, McFarland made an aggressive move into a 3-wide situation on the track. It backfired immediately. He spun. Then he spun again. By his own count, he came close to wrecking multiple times throughout the race. RCR completely abandoned their original race strategy mid-event. The new directive was straightforward: forget positions, forget the fight, just survive. He ran his final laps on severely flat-spotted tires because the good rubber had been destroyed in one of the earlier incidents. He finished 32nd out of 38 drivers, finishing 6 laps down to race winner William Sawalich. What followed in the aftermath was a split reaction from within the racing world that was more revealing than the result itself. Ty Dillon was measured and supportive. He acknowledged the improvement, pointed to the context, that McFarland was coming from essentially zero traditional racing background, and said he had a lot to process but would develop better instincts over time. That was the diplomatic read from inside the RCR camp. The outside perspective was considerably less gentle. Tommy Baldwin, former crew chief and team owner, was direct in his assessment, calling it a waste of a perfectly good race car. Freddie Kraft on the Door Bumper Clear podcast zeroed in on a specific piece of in-car audio that circulated after the race. During the event, McFarland did not understand what his spotter meant when the spotter said, "inside." That detail hit hard with experienced NASCAR people. That is not an advanced concept. That is the absolute foundation of racing communication. And Dale Earnhardt Jr., after reviewing both test footage and race footage, said he had seen enough to not approve McFarland for Daytona or Talladega in the O'Reilly series, adding that he honestly expected him to wreck before finishing at all. On April 8, 2026, NASCAR made the decision official. John Probst, the organization's executive vice president and chief racing development officer, addressed the situation directly and on record. The statement was carefully worded but unmistakably clear. McFarland is approved for all of the ARCA Menard Series, all of the Truck Series, and O'Reilly short track events. The door to Talladega and Daytona in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series is not permanently closed. It is conditional. NASCAR stated explicitly that they want to see more development before granting superspeedway approval in that series. This is not a ban. It is a progression gate with specific conditions attached to it. McFarland broke the news himself on Facebook before it became a headline anywhere else. He called it a kick in the teeth, but he was composed about it. He acknowledged that he has only been competing in NASCAR for a year. He said more windshield time, in any car, in any series, is what is going to help him get to where he wants to be. He made no excuses for the Rockingham result. That reaction mattered beyond just the optics of it. A significant number of drivers in his position would have been defensive, would have pushed back on the process, or would have deflected blame onto equipment or strategy. He did none of those things. His candor is a large part of why his audience remained engaged and why the broader NASCAR community's response was complicated rather than simply negative. He will still compete in the ARCA Menard Series race at Talladega that same weekend, a series he holds full clearance for. He simply will not be in the O'Reilly car. That distinction matters because it shows the decision was targeted and specific, not a broad rejection of his presence in the sport. This decision sparked a conversation inside NASCAR that extends far beyond one driver's approval status. Mark Martin, who has publicly supported McFarland throughout his racing journey, still agreed with the process entirely. His position was direct: the path to NASCAR superspeedways should go through late model wins. Win the Snowball Derby and you have written your own ticket into those conversations. That is how the sport is designed to work. Tommy Baldwin framed the issue in terms that cut through the noise. It is like being in 7th grade and deciding you want to go straight to college. The ambition, he made clear, is not wrong. The sequence is the problem. And that framing gets to the heart of what NASCAR was actually communicating with its decision. Freddie Kraft's analysis on the Door Bumper Clear podcast was arguably the most important contribution to the public debate. He drew a clear line between two separate skills that often get conflated. Knowing how to drive fast is one skill. Knowing how to race, reading traffic in real time, responding correctly to spotter communication, managing instinct in multi-car situations at racing speed, is an entirely different discipline that takes years to develop. At Talladega and Daytona, that gap between driving and racing is not just a matter of finishing position. It is a matter of everyone's safety on that track. NASCAR's interest in McFarland is not purely sentimental or strategic from a marketing perspective, even though his audience represents exactly the kind of younger demographic the sport has spent years trying to reach. The entire NASCAR garage was reportedly pulling for him. But interest in someone's story and approval for the most structurally dangerous event format on the schedule are two completely different categories of decision. NASCAR made the right call, and the consensus from within the sport appears to reflect that. The plan for McFarland going forward is built around acceleration, not waiting. More ARCA starts are scheduled. More Truck Series races are coming. He is actively constructing the developmental ladder that he probably should have climbed years earlier, except he is doing it entirely in public, in front of millions of people, which creates a layer of pressure and scrutiny that no driver in NASCAR's developmental history has ever had to manage simultaneously. At the Freedom Factory, he is launching a pro late model series. He is purchasing a straight rail late model from Port City Race Cars and partnering with promoter and technical director Ricky Brooks to run events at his own track. He is creating for himself the very developmental racing environment he skipped on the way in. The Polaris deal keeps his content business financially stable regardless of what NASCAR decides next. His next potential O'Reilly Superspeedway opportunity does not arrive until late August 2026. His stated goal is to be racing Daytona and Talladega in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series by 2027. Whether that timeline holds depends entirely on what he absorbs between now and then. NASCAR said not yet. Cleetus McFarland said fair enough. And in a sport that has historically left almost no room for people who did not come up through the traditional developmental system, that exchange between a governing body and an outsider might actually represent the most productive outcome anyone could have hoped for from this entire situation. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit the like button. It makes a genuine difference in helping more NASCAR fans find this kind of in-depth coverage. And if you want weekly analysis of everything happening in NASCAR, from driver news to race breakdowns to stories exactly like this one, subscribe to the channel so you never miss an update.